Welcome, community. Welcome to the ABC Realty Podcast. Today we have a special conversation. We have 3 guests, and we, as you know, are taking on this gap, the homeownership gap here in Minnesota, and we're having a host of different conversations that speak to the inequities in real estate. And today we're having a special conversation. I have with me 3 people in studio, each representing a different organization, and I want to share this with you. So we're going to start with you, Isaac Contreras. Can you tell us who you are and what organization you're representing today?
Absolutely. My name's Isaac Contreras, and today I am as the president of NAHREP, the National Association of Hispanic Real Estate Professionals. We have a Twin Cities chapter here, and I am a real estate agent with Keller Williams Integrity Realty out of Roseville, Minnesota.
Welcome. Welcome to the ABC Realty Podcast. Trent, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Trent Bowman, and I am the NAREB president, local chapter president at this time. And I also work for Midwest One Bank as the vice president of CRA Business Development.
And can you tell us, Trent, what does NAREB stand for?
NAREB stands for National Association of Real Estate Brokers.
Very good. Thank you. And welcome, Trent.
Thank you.
And we also have Nalee joining us today. And Nalee, can you introduce yourself and let us know who you're with?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for having me. My name is Nalee, and I am the 2021 president of AREA Twin Cities. AREA stands for Asian Real Estate Association of America, and we are one of the 40 chapters across the United States. And I'm so happy to be here. I'm also a licensed real estate agent with Suburban Herbs team at Keller Williams Classic Realty and Maple Grove.
Welcome to all 3 of you to this conversation today. Laid back conversation, but I think, the world needs to know, right, that there are these associations, and I want to talk about, what these associations do, right, who they represent, and why are they necessary? Okay, so you ready to dig in with me?
Absolutely.
So each of you are the president of the local chapter of your Realtor Association. I want to ask you, why did you decide, Isaac, that you wanted to take on the role of president of the association?
Well, it wasn't something that I decided. I was asked to, which was a big honor because I'm very new to the real estate industry as far as an agent.
Okay.
Just turned 5 years old. So
Congratulations.
I have completed a full 4 years, and I've been a part of the NAREP chapter here in Twin Cities for the last 3.
Mm-hmm.
And I was asked to join the board in 2018.
Mm-hmm.
And then in 2019, I was asked to be the VP. And so I actually rolled into the 2020. I was asked to be the president.
Okay.
And so now here we are.
Wow.
Right? Rolling in. And so I was the president of 2021. And it's been fun. I love it.
What are some of the issues facing NAHREP?
Well, some of the issues, COVID, right? That's a big deal. We've had the economic crisis. We had the health crisis that we're dealing with. So we're very much an in-person organization, right? That's where we do our best work, is getting in front of folks, getting in front of real estate practitioners. Nationally, we're a little over 40,000 members.
Wow.
We have about 100 chapters across the country. The Twin Cities, we're 3 years old.
Wow.
We're
very
new.
So infant.
New on the scene.
Infants. Yeah. Wow.
And so we've been able to establish a foothold. But 2021 was a big challenge. And the biggest thing was, how do we make that transformation from being an all in-person focused organization for our real estate practitioners, which include lenders and title companies and insurance agents, things like that, and still be effective virtually, because lessons that we learned from the housing bubble, right? You lose, not only do you lose the market share, but you lose those professionals as well. So how do we keep our professionals who are in the who have that market share, who are in the market, who are helping families
Right.
attain home ownership. How do you keep their businesses not just surviving in this economic and health crisis, but thriving? So that way, when our demographic gets that that confidence back, right after losing their job or after falling ill, things like that, that they can still poke their heads up and say, when I want to buy a house, this is who I'm going to do business with.
Right.
So that's been the biggest
Sure.
challenge. I think we've done pretty well with that. We've done pretty well.
Wow. Wow. I didn't realize that you were a newbie. And I want to ask, sorry.
Yeah, no, that's all right.
So 3 years. NAHREP is only 3
Only
years
3
old
years
in Minnesota?
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
Well, keep in mind we're in Minnesota.
Okay.
Right.
Minnesota?
Minnesota, right? And it's and it's Minnesota in itself, just market wise, is flyover country, right? But then
Okay.
you add the Latino population perspective to that, and it becomes even more flyover country. So, for example, when I'm born and raised here in St. Paul, and when I left for the Navy, a kid from St. Paul, from the West Side, which is the oldest Hispanic
Right.
neighborhood community
In
in the state of Minnesota.
Yep. Absolutely.
I'm in the forest, so I don't recognize that me being here is odd, right? And then I go into the Navy, and you get thrown into a room with 100 other men from different parts of the country: Arkansas, Florida, New York, Cali, Pennsylvania. All of these different parts of the country, and everyone's like, "Where are you from?" Minnesota. No, you're not.
What do they say? There's Spanish people in
Yes,
Minnesota?
That's
Is that
exactly
kind of
what they said. And for 6 years,
really?
no one ever guessed that I was from Minnesota. But that was indicative of, and I didn't realize it until I got out, but that was indicative of how nationally speaking, and even some regionally speaking, seeing the Latino population in Minnesota is still flyover country, right? And so I think that's part of the why
Okay.
it hasn't happened before.
Wow.
Right. So and even just the challenges
Sure.
of saying, hey, San Diego, we're over here. There's
Wow.
a need, because
Right.
otherwise our nearest chapter was Chicago or Denver. Well, neither one is close.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's fascinating.
So that's part of it, right? You look at it nationally. When you think about Latino populations, Minnesota's not
you don't
there.
think Minnesota. Okay.
It's the East Coast, the West Coast, the southern or southern states, and then maybe you think about Chicago,
Yeah.
right? So yeah, that's I think the biggest factor as to why over the 21-year lifetime of NAREB nationally, we just have a chapter now, and we're growing. I mean, there's more chapters every year in the organization
across the
correct
the United States.
So yeah, no, we got a foothold. We're 3 years old.
Wow.
Rolling into our
So
fourth
say
year.
it. Say again. The acronym is NAHREP.
NAREP, National Association of Hispanic Real Estate Professionals.
Okay.
And
Very cool.
Quick misconception: you don't have to speak Spanish. You don't
Good
have
to
to be
know.
Latino or Latina
Right.
to be
Right.
a part of the organization. We're looking for folks who want to partner with us, and Trent knows this. Want to partner with us for our mission: advancing sustainable Hispanic homeownership.
Right.
That word "sustainable" is such a big piece.
Amen. Yeah. Amen to that.
Absolutely.
Wow. And Trent, as president of NAREB, the National Association of Real Estate Brokers, right? So if somebody said the National Association of Real Estate Brokers to me, I wouldn't think black.
Right.
Why is that?
So that's a great question. And unfortunately, I don't have an answer. So I'm not even going to sit up here and try to explain,
Sure.
why they came up with NAREB. And it does not have the word African American or black, in its title. So I know at one of the national conferences that I attended, I know they were going to switch the name, and I can't remember what the acronyms were going to be, but it did have the word black in that new name that they were going to change it to. So
Are they still planning on,
That I don't
doing
know.
that?
That
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay.
So our story is kind of similar to NAREB's, story.
Uh-huh.
We're not that old either, to be honest with you.
Okay. Here in Minnesota.
Here in Minnesota, but local or nationally,
Yeah.
NAREB started back in 1947, and the reason why it was started is because there was a lot of discrimination for home ownership for Black people.
Right.
There was a lot of redlining going on. Black people were not given a fair opportunity to become homeowners. So, NAREB started this organization back in 1947 in Tampa, Florida. Hence, years moving forward, the chapter was started here in 2015.
2015.
Yes, yes.
Wow.
So you got to give we have to give some shout outs to some of our local finding fathers or mothers, if you
absolutely,
will.
yeah.
Julia Israel was one of the individuals who helped get this chapter started. Rochelle Taylor and was another one of the young ladies who helped get this started. And I started back in 2015 as just a member, of NAREB because I love the mission.
So you've been a founding member.
No, I wasn't. I was a
founding of this
I was a
chapter.
member. Yes, I was one of the members.
Right,
via the organization that I worked with at the time, and I just love the mission. And it's kind of similar to NAREP's mission. Again, providing sustainable housing. Within the African American community, and making sure that we can afford the home. That we're purchasing. And it's all about building that wealth. We all talk about build wealth. How do we build wealth? We all talk about housing. The housing industry is a way for us to build that wealth. But if we don't know how to play the game to get the house, how can we build wealth? If we're not having these conversations at the dinner table when we're growing up and coming up about owning a home, most of the folks that we know are second, third generation, but the first 2 or 3 generations didn't even own a home.
Right.
So we have a legacy to fulfill. We have some responsibilities to adhere to because we have to take on that mission that our grandfathers and our uncles and our cousins and our ancestors didn't have. They didn't have these opportunities to be homeowners. So NAREB is that pillar, for African Americans to be homeowners, but understand the concept of being a homeowner so they can build that equity and build that generational wealth. Let's start leaving more to our kids of tomorrow, so they don't have to have the challenges that we had to face in our ancestors and our grandfathers and mothers, what they had to face. So the redlining, the things that being left out of the game, not having the same or fair opportunities to become homeowners. And this is what drove me to NAREB, and that's what I loved about the mission. So I started as a member. I was the treasurer. Then, as Isaac, I was asked to be the president. So,
so I can imagine, 1947, right? So there was a time in history where if you were Black, you couldn't even find a realtor that would even work with you. Right. If you wanted home ownership and you had the means for home ownership, there was a time in history where it just wasn't available to you.
So,
and that kind of helped to spawn, right? And would you say a similar story?
And
Isaac?
and some of the motivation behind creating this organization, and it was started nationally 21 years ago between with Jerry Asensio and Gary Acosta, who is our current CEO. Right?
Okay.
And they were having, and I'll tell you, I was joking about this, but it was serious. They were partners, right? So Jerry Asensio was a real estate agent, and Gary was the mortgage broker, the mortgage banker, right? And so they would do transactions together, and when they would complete their transaction, they would celebrate by having breakfast, and they would have chorizo and eggs, and they would talk about the what ifs, right? They would have these questions about what ifs because they're in San Diego, right? And this is they're in the forest, right? So they're having these what if questions. Well, what if this, or what should we do about this, and how can we affect this and ensure that the service that's being provided to the Hispanic homeowner or even the prospective Hispanic homeowner is professional, ethical, right, and sustainable. And having that conversation, how do we do that? Because plenty of opportunity to take advantage of our
Absolutely.
ignorance.
Yeah,
Right? As a community,
absolutely.
we don't know things.
Right. You
And
don't
so
know
we
what
get
you don't
taken
know.
advantage of.
Mhm.
And sometimes, and too often, it's by folks that look just like us.
Yeah.
And that's some of that
Sure,
motivation
right.
was to be able to empower and engage the real estate practitioner to ensure that it was ethical, that it was
Yeah.
empowering,
Mhm.
that it was sustainable. And that's like when I hear that, I'm all in. I'm all in.
Mhm.
So when they asked me, I didn't have any problem saying,
Mhm.
"Yeah, what do you need?"
Right.
Wonderful. And Nalee, you lead AREAA, right? And what was your motivation for taking on that leadership role? And say again the AREAA,
Oh, sure.
not the acronym, but what it means.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I actually started out introduced to Arya through my husband, Johnny Lee. He was actually one of the founding fathers, along with Long Doan. He's CEO and broker of Realty Group.
Okay.
They initially went to one of the Arya conventions, brought back the chapter, created the Twin Cities, and here we are today, about 6 years later.
Wow. So all three of these are relatively
Absolutely.
new
Mhm. Very,
chapters
very,
here in Minnesota. Wow.
Yeah, so 2015, sorry, was when the chapter came about to the Twin Cities. 2016, I was introduced to it. I was not licensed agent. My husband and I met in 2016, and I started to kind of help him with some of the just helping him run errands. And so he brought me around to Arya and some of the board members. I was like, oh, this is cool. It's different. I came from a totally different background. I had a legal background, so I worked at a law firm. And
Okay.
at that time, it didn't strike me interest like real estate. Okay, sure. These are a bunch of folks who get together, drink, and have fun. I didn't say that. No, but it was, it was the best introduction. It was the best way for me to really just see the surface of things within real estate, because that's where it really all began. Was when I had actually gotten licensed in 2017. I made that decision to cross over to real estate. So
Wow.
I initially started as an investor.
Okay.
And before I met my husband, so luckily he was already a licensed real estate
Yep,
agent
tell him.
and in title.
Right. Your
so-
husband is in title, right?
Yeah, yes, exactly.
And he's a top producer.
Yes, he's title smart.
Mm-hmm.
And so initially, I stuck around as a member in 2017 and didn't anticipate to take on any leadership role as well. But I am an advocate at heart, and I do have a very soft spot and compassion for many others in the community that need help and attention, and just extra volunteerism. And so already being on the board with another organization that I'm with, I decided, hey, why not? There's always going to be that need for advocacy out there. And this is just one more area, because why not use it within the profession that I'm in, the industry that I'm in, because I grew up, seeing my parents struggle and become not even yet becoming homeowners until they were in their 50s. And that was a very sad thing to see. We rented.
Were your
all
parents
our lives.
first generation Hmong?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
So they immigrated here with my grandparents. And so I am, well, I guess you could say I'm technically first generation,
Okay.
but I consider myself,
yes.
yeah, exactly. So I
That's
consider
right.
myself first generation. They were here far before my time, of course. And so they came here with my grandparents, and we never owned a home. And they didn't understand what credit was. I'm sure they heard about it here and there, but they didn't get the right resources, the right education. So that really fueled me to want to recycle back my, my self-dignity, wanting to do what's right to help other families who struggle the same as me, whether they're first generation or not. Whether they're millennials who grew up under the roof of, parents who were not educated, grandparents even who had to raise their grandchildren because, their parents died in the secret war during the immigration time. So it just really touched my heart to understand the back work of our organization, which again stands for the Asian Real Estate Association of America. Again, we are one of the 40 chapters, and so it's just been an honor to be part of the board to help, lead a great team of professionals, real estate and housing professionals, And really, hopefully we can kind of pave way for the
Sure.
millennials ahead to continue carrying on the torch, because there's just not enough families out there who understand that there's like Minnesota housing down payment. There's also other new ethnic groups within the AAPI community, like the Korean, Burmese, Tibetans, and
Yeah.
they are always in need of professionals, real estate professionals and
Absolutely.
housing professionals to work with. And that's one thing that I myself as a real estate agent find trouble coming across is, oh gosh, there's somebody who needs a Tibetan speaker, or there's somebody who needs a Burmese lender, Burmese speaking lender, but there's not enough resources. So it's like what Trent and Isaac were saying, we really need to cater to the community that we're
So there's not enough professionals
exactly.
in the various fields of real estate and the ancillary fields, such as title, right? Such as
Not to meet the
mortgage
demand.
lending.
No.
There's not enough,
Absolutely.
not enough
Not enough.
professionals
I
in
think
the field.
also according to, I can't recall if it was
Mhm.
NAR or MAR, but minority agents really make up only like a nick of the,
I think it was 8%.
it's really low. Yes.
Mm.
It's
Like
just
single
not
digits.
enough.
So less than 10%
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
the real estate professional
Right.
here in Minnesota are realtors of color.
Right. And there's, I think,
Yeah.
17,000 plus agents,
So
licensed
Right.
I
agents.
think it was
Or it's
closer to
probably
20.
even higher now.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's
Yeah,
20,000
closer to
plus
20,000
licensed agents.
licensed
Mhm.
agents.
Right.
And we've
And so-
identified probably somewhere, and as NAREP, right, like that's our focus.
Mhm.
We've identified maybe 375, 400 agents, which you could categorize as Latino,
Wow.
Wow.
out of
Yeah.
20,000 plus
Wow.
licensed
Wow.
agents. And
Yeah.
some of those are, property management.
Mhm.
Right. It doesn't
So they're
mean that
not
they're actually
necessarily
They're
active.
actually
Yeah.
working a transaction.
as a
For-
real, as a
Yeah.
residential real estate agent.
And then
Right.
how many of them are really
True.
full-time, too?
Right,
Right.
exactly.
You got to take
Yeah.
that into
Right.
consideration.
This job is not a part-time job.
Right,
It's
right.
not.
A lot of people
Mhm.
will do real estate on the side as a part-time job, but it is anything but.
Yeah, they don't put that in
A
the fine
part-time.
print of the brochure, do they?
So there's so much need or opportunity, if you will,
Opportunity,
right? There's so much opportunity for professionals of color to be here in this space of real estate, and we have this thing in Minnesota, this housing gap, right? And part of that gap persisting is because there aren't enough of us. There aren't enough of us to shepherd a transaction, right? Or what does home ownership in the Hmong community? When you weren't born here and you came here, that's not even, is it a word, right, in the Hmong
Right.
language, right?
It exists, but
Mhm.
it's very, it's a dream that's not
Yeah.
always easily to
Yeah.
pursue because it just, even with millennials right now who, grew up again from, I would say first generation parents, like
Sure.
maybe they're probably a little bit further than me
Okay.
in the generation status, but,
Mhm.
maybe 50s, even those folks aren't fully knowledgeable enough to pass it on to their children who are the millennials of the future,
Sure.
which again, 90% of my clients are millennials. One kid or no kid moving out
Sure.
of mom and dad's, basement house. And
Mhm.
these are folks who are just obtaining their education or have a good job, but yet they
Right.
have this barrier wall that
Right.
says, oh, you need 20% down, or there is no assistance.
Mhm.
Oh, well, how do we get them the funds? Oh, that means we can't buy a house. We
Right.
only have, we're just newlyweds.
Or I don't even know anyone
Right.
in my
Well, that-
community
like
that
Trent
has
mentioned,
owned a
was
home,
being
right?
part of that conversation
Right.
that's had at the
Mhm.
dinner table, that's had at the
Right.
breakfast table.
Mhm.
Right.
We don't, not often enough are we having those conversations about wealth accumulation, about
Mhm.
budgeting, credit. We talked about that.
Yeah.
What does that even mean? Well,
Right.
you can go over to the building downtown, Fair Isaacs, and ask them, and they still don't know.
Right.
Right.
So how are we?
Right.
Right. And you'd be surprised, that a lot of people, they don't even know what their credit scores are.
Right.
And that's something that we're trying to educate.
Right, right.
Credit. We are really, really trying to educate
Mhm.
the BIPOC or the African American community on
Sure.
credit, because
Mhm.
credit is I like to say credit is king. You
Yeah.
know, credit is the impact.
So cash is king is a misnomer.
That's a misnomer. Because I mean,
It's a
let's
misnomer.
think about how much credit has an impact
Right.
on your everyday life now.
Yeah.
You know, credit has an impact on what type of interest rate you can get. Credit has an impact on your insurance premium. Credit has an impact on the job that you
That
may
you can
want.
get,
This
right.
might be your
Right.
dream job, but because you didn't have that conversation at the table about how to manage your credit, how to, make sure that you're using your credit cards and in the right way, because again, it's a slippery slope.
Yes, it is.
You got to have credit to get something, because if you
Right.
don't have credit, then you can't get anything.
Right. Right.
But how do we manage it responsibly?
Sure.
And that's where organizations like this are so impactful because, right, we're not having those conversations. We don't know at the buyer level, right?
Right.
But if you were to ask these questions, even at the real estate practitioner level,
Sure.
right,
Yeah.
the real estate agents, we're not as strong as we ought to be, right? We still struggle to be able to provide the right kind of guidance with our clients, whether we're an agent or whether we're a loan officer, to be able to make sure that they do have that buying ability, right? You still have to have that buying ability. And even just understanding that there's access to credit, right? And that's a big thing, is like, do I even have access to credit? Well, me as a real estate agent, myself as a real estate, I ought to be able to at least speak on that.
Sure. Yeah.
And if there's 20,000 of us, right?
Right.
Just in
Right.
general.
Right.
And the average agent, and these numbers are out there, the average agent only has 4 transactions a year.
Wow.
What are they actually learning? And what
Right.
are they actually repeating
Right.
themselves if they
Yeah.
themselves are not armed? And so that's why organizations like this, where we're empowering and educating the practitioner and having those kinds of webinars, we talked about land trusts, or we talk about access to credit, or we talk about the legalities of being a real estate agent.
Or the myths
Or
around
the myths
buying.
and misconceptions,
Yeah.
correct. That's
Yeah.
a big deal, to be able to make sure that we at this level are knowledgeable, are educated, can be a solid guide.
You said that there are, on average, a Minnesota real estate
Well, it's a
professional.
national,
national.
Yeah, nationally,
Okay.
the average real estate agent only does 4 transactions a year.
So I always
That is true.
I always like
blows
to, I always like
Isn't
to
that
think,
incredible?
if I had a dream, and for this industry, and how we can, how can we get people to the table, and how can we get our consumers to to become homeowners, to be able to afford the home they can afford. I always like to use a saying: your dream home is the home you can afford. And I think
like
we
that.
can get people
Right.
into the dream home that they can afford if we in the industry start working more together. I think there's just too much individualism in this industry.
Sure.
I think there are too many real estate agents, and forgive me, and if I hurt your feelings, I apologize in advance. But I believe this. There are too many real estate agents that think they run the industry. There are too many loan officers who think they run the industry.
Or there's not enough room for anyone else, right?
We're forgetting who the common denominator is, who we all work for. And we all work for the consumer.
Absolutely.
And we need to start acting and working more inclusive with each other to help benefit that consumer. So when a loan officer tells a real estate agent, this person only qualifies for this particular dollar amount of a home, please show that person that house within that person's qualification.
Right.
And don't show that person houses 25 and 30,000 more than what they can qualify for, because what we've done now is we made this whole transaction more challenging.
Yeah. Or impossible.
Or
right?
impossible. And then we do the idle threats. Well, if you can't get it, I'll take my deal to somebody else. This is where these organizations this is where we have to be more strong together. And push back a little bit to say, we're a team. We gotta act like a team. We gotta work more together for the common denominator of that consumer, because that's who we're all doing this for, right?
Yeah.
This is what we're trying to build these relationships so it can continue to grow and grow in the future and stop the whole individual.
And then we can close that gap.
Right.
Well,
Imagine that.
Right?
Imagine
that.
if we work together
we're working
and
on it.
if we're all
Wow.
on the same,
Yeah.
if we're all on the same page for the betterment of that consumer.
Yes.
Imagine what we could do.
Yeah.
That's just my humble
Right.
opinion, and I always wanted to share that. You know?
Now, Nalee, tell me, give me an example of something that AREA does to help, ramp up or educate, the real estate professional, or
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Not only do we work on a local level, but we also work in parallel with our national AREA as well, and all of the other 40 chapters. So we always try to focus on 3 specific points we want to bring up as policy to the White House, every year. And so I personally don't, again, it's newer chapter. We haven't gotten involved with with AREA National directly on that, but we do stay in contact as far as what policies are we trying to fight for here. And I know that for one, we are definitely focusing on the credit with
in communities of Asian.
yes, and not just for the AAPI, but for it to really help any community, any minorities.
Sure.
And so I think that's been a really important,
Absolutely.
policy point that we are focusing on on a national level, is to really reform that credit wheel, right? Like, what are we really looking at? There are a ton of successful business owners in the AAPI, not just AAPI, but the African American, the Hispanic communities, and we shouldn't limit their ability to purchase because they run on cash or they are not that, maybe they don't have like the greatest CPA accountant, right? And so, or there's mattress money, and so not only that, but in the AAPI community, just across the board, a lot of Asian families don't believe in credit because they don't want, they've been taught to not incur debt, and so. That's also another downfall with the credit is that it doesn't mean that they don't have the money, but it's just that they may not have the credit, and so because they're not used to trying to, get all this extra credit to go purchase, they'll use cash, they'll use their own funds. And so that's also another gap that we're trying to help educate the API community, and not just us, but in hopes that those policies will help impact and improve across the BIPOC community.
Yeah.
And we share that as one of our tracks, is that access to credit, understanding and having the lender understand there's multiple sources of income in that household. To recognize those multiple sources of income and how those sources are actually generated, whether, because we tend to be more entrepreneurial.
Right.
Exactly.
And extended family,
Absolutely.
right?
Correct.
There are more multi-generations living in one roof. Yeah.
And I think that that's something that we want to push for the lenders to start reviewing in general, is like, what incomes are under that multi-general roof, not just,
And it's definitely a federal level piece there too.
Sure.
That's definitely
Policy
a federal
piece,
level piece, because unless it's part of a lender's actual portfolio, they're going to go based off of Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac. That's what
I saw an article this week that they are going to be incorporating on-time rents as a
line of credit.
A line of credit. Yep. So on-time rents, and there's a platform now, because the big hurdle around reporting on-time rents towards someone's credit history has been, well, the landlords they're not gonna buy in and be the ones responsible for reporting that their 50 or 100 or so tenants have been paying on time. So a digital platform has been created so that the landlords participate, and those on-time rent payments will now show up as on a credit report and contribute to a consumer's credit score.
I think
that will be huge, right?
And that's that access to credit.
Exactly.
Getting that
right,
that
because a whole lot of people in communities of color are renting, right? Which is why we have this gap between white families that own and families of color. So that's going to be a powerful tool to close that gap. And I like what you said, Trent, that we have to work together. We we can't be out here in this space saying, well, I'm not sharing nothing, not my knowledge or my resources with anybody because I want all the business. Right. Well, if you're, doing this part-time and maybe doing 4 transactions a year, that is not all the business, right?
No, and that's the thing is like that scarcity mentality versus the abundance mentality, right? I mean, even in the state of Minnesota, and I know what you're talking about because we find that within the industry, right? We find that too often people think that the pie is only so big.
Yes.
But the reality is that it's, over 60,000 transactions in a year. Yeah. Now, that's a pretty big pie, if you ask me.
Right. That's
and then
a big
you still
pie.
have demand that's not being met. So how much bigger could that get with that additional access to credit, with improved housing inventory, right? Just those 2 factors alone.
Right. So I hear educating the professional.
Absolutely.
Right. I hear, educating the consumer on access to credit. I hear, working together as opposed to in opposition with each other. So what is on the agenda? What's important on the agenda coming as we go into 2022 for NAHREP?
Well, one of them is increasing our presence, right?
Okay.
So there's 2 tracks that we have that we push on. One of them is that empowering of the real estate practitioner, right? And the other one is affecting policy. Okay, so the reality is when we talk about housing inventory, when we talk about some of the rules that are generated in Washington, is being able to affect that. But ultimately is not just saying, oh, we want to do this, but actually getting the invite into that room where the decisions are being made, right? So nationally, our leadership with Gary and Norena at our headquarters in San Diego, they're getting invited to DC when they're having these conversations about this housing policy, this housing initiative, when it comes to like the infrastructure bill that just got passed. Right? We had input in that. We were invited into that room to be able to provide that aspect, right? Now, locally, how do we do that?
Right.
Well, we have to figure out and we have to work on getting invited into those rooms as well. So some of the things that we're doing locally. So
at the governor's level and the mayor's
the governor's level, the legislation,
the legislator,
the city councils, right?
Yes.
Because what's an obstacle when we want to create more housing inventory? Like locally as a chapter, our ability to impact immigration reform, for example, because we got a lot of dreamers, right?
Yes, absolutely.
That want to buy,
right?
Can they, right? So there's that, but that's a national thing.
Tell us what a dreamer is. Can you for our audience that may not know what Isaac just said?
Yeah, right.
What did he say?
So it's someone who was brought here by their family and then raised here, and maybe at a young age too. So didn't know, didn't have control, but they've grown up here, and now they're in.
They've only known America.
Yeah, and so now they're kind of in an influx of what is my immigration status, right? Yes. So they've been called dreamers, but they have education, they have schooling, they have an address, different things, right? So that access, and they're prospective home buyers, right?
Absolutely.
But that's at a national. So we locally. We have the ability to voice our opinion. We have a governmental affairs committee that's new this year that addresses this. And so some of the things that we've done is we've reached out to our senators about different housing initiatives, right? But the other thing that we're doing is making sure that we understand that locally we need to be involved. We need to introduce ourselves and be a part of the city councils and the planning commissions.
Sure.
Okay, because the planning commissions are the ones who decide the zoning for the master plans every couple of years that gets done for the cities that have to be submitted to the Met Council.
2040 comp plan.
Exactly.
Right? It's broken down into
absolutely. And those decisions are made at the city council level, and the variances and things like that. The planning commission, right? That's where we can have an impact, a local impact, is we're involved. So we've gone through and we've introduced ourselves. And I started with, we have started with the first ring suburbs that have high populations of Latino residents, right? So
Sure.
we went to the South St. Paul City Council meeting and introduced ourselves.
Awesome.
We introduced ourselves as NAREB. We're a local chapter. We're here to be a partner. We know you have questions because you have your double-digit Latino population continues to grow, right?
And
It's
pay
impacting-
taxes here.
Correct. It's impacting your schools. It's impacting your residents. You have questions. Here we are. We're a resource. Ask us. You have a partner. We went to West St. Paul. Same thing. They're doing a lot of things with the housing, right? Ask us. We're here. We're not going in there demanding this, demanding that.
Right.
Honey and vinegar, right? Right?
Right.
But if we can at least, introduce ourselves, we're going to be going to Richfield. We're going to be going to Bloomington. We're starting with the first ring suburbs because that's for us. We're still a small organization. We're still new. Being able to jump into a larger city like St. Paul and Minneapolis, I don't want us to get lost, right? Right? Because there's a lot of activity there with the BIPOC community,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
But at least, so some of that work's already being done.
Yep.
But at least with the first ring suburbs who have this high impact, this higher population
Right.
of the Latino community, we can voice that, let them know that they've got a partner.
Yeah.
They can
Brilliant.
ask, what do you need from us so we can answer you? Right? Because that home ownership rate is important and it's increasing.
Yes, it is.
And Latinos are moving to Minnesota. Especially, I mean, we're just naturally mobile, right? We're just naturally mobile.
Right,
we have a history of moving to where the jobs are.
Yep.
Right, and that's why you see the population in Georgia growing, the population in the Carolinas growing, things like that. where it's
Through
traditionally
agriculture, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we'll move to where the work is at.
Right.
Well, and we've discovered that Minnesota is in the top 15 states
Yeah.
of where Latinos are
Right.
moving to.
Migrant farmers.
Yeah. Well, and they're moving here for the construction jobs because we do have a good economy here.
Yep.
We are paying well here in Minnesota, and that's attractive.
Yeah.
And so now we actually have over the last few years the highest, the fastest home ownership growth rate, not only nationally for the last 6 years, but here in Minneapolis, St. Paul, we have the highest
Wow.
in the Midwest.
Most growth in that.
the cities in the Midwest.
Wow.
Absolutely.
So what is on NAREB's plate for 2022? What is one big thing that NAREB wants to focus on in 2022?
Yeah, I'm not going to say we're going to get into the politics.
Hey, just to be clear,
Not
we're
politics,
apolitical.
right?
We're not political. We're apolitical.
I would,
Right.
and that's a great question, Seanne. And my term as the president ends in December, and the incoming president is Cameron Perquette. Great young brother, a lot of energy, a lot of drive, and I think he's going to take NAREB to another level that I couldn't take it. We had challenges with the pandemic, but what I'd like to see in 2022 though, I want to see more involvement. I want to see more commitment.
When you say that, more involvement, more commitment, who are you speaking
from brokers.
to? Okay.
I want to see more involvement from
Okay.
brokers because when we had our meeting today, when I look at our membership for brokers, and NAREB again stands for National Association of Real Estate Brokers.
Right.
But we have more members that are loan officers. We have more major sponsorships or local sponsorships from banks.
Okay.
Midwest One, Old National, U.S. Bank, Chase. Those are our bigger sponsors. So I would like to challenge, our local brokers. I would like to challenge.
So the Edina Realty,
the Edina Realties, the Caldwell
Williams,
Bankers, all of them.
Yeah.
I mean, we all talk about bridging this gap.
Right,
We all
closing the gap, the homeownership gap.
Like as Isaac said, and our Nalee says, we're a resource.
Yeah.
Utilize us.
Right.
Let us help. We don't have all the answers, but if we don't know something, we'll find out. We have a great national chapter. You know, we have a regional vice president, you know, that we can call on and we can talk to. But not even just more of the bigger brokers. I like to even call out a challenge to even some of the smaller brokers. You know, brokers who, you know, have maybe, you know, they have their broker license and they might have 2 or 3 real estate agents up under, you know, up under their belt.
Sure.
You know, let's get these real estate agents.
ABC Realty.
I'm not talking, you know.
She's doing the work.
Right. But
She's doing the work.
we've had the conversation, so I'm not gonna put Seanne on blast out here.
Thank you.
I'll do it.
but that would be my call
Yeah,
to challenge.
okay.
You know,
Sure.
especially some of the minority brokers.
Yeah.
You know, we can't.
That'd be interesting to know, you know, how many
No,
how many BIPOC brick and mortar brokerages are there, right? Because it's one thing to be a realtor and even have a broker's license, but you're still working for, you know, Caldwell Banker or Edina Realty or Remax or whatever, right?
Right.
So you're a broker and you may even have a team that you have built nested in that brokerage under your broker license. So it would be interesting, you know, how many are there? There aren't many brick and mortar
right.
that are in a brick and mortar place and space and running, you know, a brokerage, but there are a lot embedded in the larger brokerages, right? That have a team that they're developing.
Right. And you can go on our website.
Yeah.
You know, this is not private information. It's public information. You can go on NAREB Twin Cities and you can see who our sponsors are. You know, you can see, you know, that our major sponsors are banks.
The banks.
And we're grateful. And we appreciate that. But again, it stands for National Association of Real Estate Brokers. Brokers, we need you. You know, we're a resource.
Sure.
Help us and let us help you. We have a home ownership gap, especially in the city in Minneapolis for African Americans. Home ownership, we're at what 18-19%, and I might have a number off here or there, but I don't think I'm that far off.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been doing this for 20-something years, and I've been doing it at every level as a processor. You know, believe it or not, I wanted to be an underwriter. You know,
Not an undertaker.
no, I wanted to be an underwriter, but I've been a sales manager, and I'll close on this. I remember one of the first conferences I went to, it was a gentleman from BET. He was the guest speaker, and he was talking about consumer spending in the African American community versus housing and home ownership in the African American community. You know, and home ownership at that time was low. Yeah. But consuming
was high.
You know, we spend. So I've never forgot that. I never forgot that. So I always ask myself, just again, one of those dreams, when I'm sitting in my office and I'm daydreaming, imagine if our consumer spending went down. Will our home ownership percentages go up?
Right.
Yeah, it's just a thought.
That's that conversation. That's the change in that conversation. One of the mantras for some of our leadership is don't buy shoes, buy buildings.
Yeah.
I love that. Wow. And what's on the agenda in 2022 for AREAA? Or one thing.
Well, that's no longer to be. No longer going to be delegated to me, but the 2022 president. So we'll see what's in store. But some things like what Trent had mentioned, what I would really like to see, because we took precedence during the time of the most difficult challenge of being present to real estate housing professionals. So it was really. There is that distance to reach out to them personally, see them directly, talk, have good conversations, just that heart-to-heart talk, one person to the other. And so I think that it would be great for us to really be more of like an in-person resource next year doing events. I would love to see a collaboration between the three organizations.
The three organizations. That would be amazing.
I'm really big on inclusion too. And not only that, but why not work with the brokers, right? Invite all the brokers out. We can have a really big, I guess, it's probably going to be a convention, but a really big event where We can invite all lenders and agents and just really define what is the racial disparity gap. What does it mean? How can they help? No one's going to come up with all the answers right away because this has been like a work in progress, you know, for who knows how long. But, you know, that comes to play of thinking that for me, I think one really important thing I'd really like to see amongst AREAA board and members is influence. We, you know, as a board, I would love to see the influence be extended out to the members out to their colleagues, their colleagues, you know, to the brokers, and then coming right back into our organizations, not just like AREAA, but, you know, NAREB and NAHREP. And as far as everything else, I think it really just has to do with timing, because again, we suffered during the pandemic year. So we tried it. When we started to do in-person events was right around spring, was in April. And we started to, you know, get back up on our feet. We started getting memberships going back up again. And then we got, you know, some new sponsorships. And like what Trent said, a lot of the sponsors are banks. We have
so
a
that's
few
true
brokers.
of AREAA as well.
Yep, absolutely. We have a few brokers. And I feel like instead of looking at it, you know, from a, not saying bashing on brokers, but instead of looking at it from a perspective of, well, how many agents can we recruit? Look at it as how can we educate our client, our agents, so they can educate their clients, so they can reach out and get more business. It doesn't have to be business right from the forefront, right? The rest will fall into place later. But it's a matter of just doing what's right for the community and for the consumers is key point to me. Not focusing on, okay, how do I pass business to Trent?
Correct.
You know, if you join as a member, it's more of how can we help each other, right? In unison to help our clients, and therefore the rewards come into place later.
Because that's a question that gets asked. Before I joined, how much business do you get being a part of this organization?
Right.
Well,
That's
my
the wrong
motivation,
question, right?
if you're asking that question, then that motivation behind that is probably not what we're looking for, right? I mean, you know who I'm talking about, right? So it
Someone who's
wasn't
hungry.
my motivation in that. There was a benefit in that, right? Because I know that if I were in a tie with another agent, if they see my involvement here, right, then I would see that benefit. But you know, if we do our work in making sure that our real estate practitioners and our organizations are strong, are stand above, things like that, then that 4 transactions a year statistic that you see nationally doesn't apply to us, because our groups, our memberships are doing superb and superior work. And so their businesses,
because they're well trained, they're well informed.
I would even
they
like
are
to,
professionals.
I would even like to see it, you know, where people will come in and say, instead of saying, you know, how much business can I get? I would like to hear, how can I develop more relationships?
Exactly.
Absolutely.
This is a business of relationships.
Exactly. Because if I build more relationships, the business will come.
The business will flow.
But if you come in with that mentality, how much business can I get? Why do I need to pay a yearly fee?
And and some folks are wired like that, and that's fine.
And that's you know, but then maybe this is not our groups or our affinity groups may not be for you. But if you're about building relationships, if you're about, you know, making a difference, if you're about bridging the gap, if you're about increasing home ownership for the BIPOC community, then come join NAREB, come join NAREP, come join AREA, because that's what it's all about. It's all about the relationships.
Absolutely.
Beautiful.
I think like one thing going off of that is, you know, yes, there's going to always be an annual fee with any of these organizations, but it all makes up when you build a relationship, and then you get that referral, right? And whatnot from there. You not only build lifelong business partners or vendors, etc., but you also get to make a difference in the community. You know, you might even find passion volunteering. Then you move up to leadership level, right? Beyond membership. But in our organization itself, you know, we provide more than enough return on their investment of that annual membership of about 99. I don't know what you guys are. About 99 per year too.
125 for an allied member. You know.
And still, you know, it's all worth it because it's a whole year of events, online, you know, sessions, education, CEs, just everything, that we can try to put into a year
Yeah.
time.
And I love bragging. I love bragging about our membership too. I mean, I love. We've got folks that that we're city council members that are part of NAHREP membership. We've got folks that are on commissions, with, county commissions and different organizations. We got folks that are on boards for SPAR and for NAR, or not NAR, but MAR and Minnesota Realtors. So having that impact and being able to that influence to be able to grow, to have legs, right? That's important and that's powerful.
Well, here we are all here at this round table doing this podcast.
Absolutely.
How did we all meet each other?
Exactly.
Relationships.
Relationships. We met each other
Yeah.
through, Seanne, I met you through the Homeownership Alliance
Yeah.
group. Isaac, I met you because of NAREB. Nalee, same thing. We met because of the affinity groups that we are a part of.
Right.
And we all have that same passion.
Yeah.
We all have that same common denominator, that same goal, build the homeownership for BIPOC community. And now look at us, we're all friends. We all see each other, we talk to each other. We don't see each other and there's Isaac.
Yeah.
There's
a hug there, and it's
exactly.
And it's genuine.
Exactly. I was gonna say it's a genuine. What's up, Isaac? How you doing?
Right.
Bring it in. We like to call it the brother man hug.
That's right. That's right.
So
You got one coming.
Watch out. You build friendships.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You build
Absolutely.
friendships, and like I said, the business will come. And I can't tell you, there's been times where I have a deal that our bank might not be able to do. I call one of my one of my brothers or one of my the people that I know in NAREB. Hey, this is my scenario.
And this is
Can you do this deal? And Trent, I can take a crack at it. And 9 times out of 10, we get it.
And this is why working, having these kinds of relationships with a person like Trent is so important, because he's humble enough
Right.
to do that.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
And having him at that leadership position in a group like that humility, right, is contagious, right? And so if we can add that humility into the industry that we're a part of, because we know there's a lot of egos rolling around in real estate.
No shortage of ego.
No shortage of that, right? So if we can separate ourselves, and Nalee, same thing, the humility, and because we have that passion and we want to do what's right, not just because it's not transactionally motivated. It's that relationship and doing what's right and seeing that vision of home ownership and that wealth accumulation and the values and the benefits of it with the stabilization of a family, right? And the benefits, because it's such a family activity.
Oh, yes.
Right.
Absolutely.
And the kids do better in school. Their math scores go up. Their reading skills go up. And then you break that cycle.
Right.
Right. Whatever cycle it was. Hey, everybody's a little bit different, but you break that cycle and then you start onto something that's so beautiful. I mean, when we think about the immigrant community, this homeownership is such a powerful thing, because it's not only just, a cornerstone of wealth accumulation or I've got an address or thing. For many, it's a declaration of I am here. Right?
Yeah.
I did whatever I did. I got here. Whatever that path was, I am here. Paying my property taxes. Yuck. Right? But and all those things that come with it. But it's a declaration.
Absolutely.
And that's anytime I can help with that, I love it. I love it. So
And the more people that are at the economic table,
economics.
that benefits
Economics
everybody.
drives policy.
Yes.
Right? That's what
That
we're
benefits
discovering. Is
everyone.
economics drives policy. When you look at the Latino population and the GDP of the Latino population in the United States, it is the 7th largest economy in the world.
Wow.
France.
That's powerful.
We're talking France level. We're bigger than France.
Powerful.
Right?
Yeah.
And recognizing that. And then here in the Minnesota market, right, it's $4.8 billion in buying power. Like that speaks, that has power behind it. And that economic power drives policy.
Absolutely.
And so then we can have those conversations about zoning. We can have those conversations about access to credit and housing inventory, all that good stuff. Because we can, behind us, we have that economic drive.
Well, we're powerful together.
Yes, we are.
Absolutely.
But we're
Better
weak
together.
We're weak as individuals.
Yes, we are.
So if we start banding together and start working together more, as you said, we can have a difference in zoning. We can have a difference in legislation. We can have a difference in Congress.
Right.
I mean, not to get political, but there's power in the African American community. There's power in the Asian community. There's power in the Hispanic community.
Absolutely.
So let's start utilizing the power that we have, start working together, be more of a one unit versus individual units, and imagine the accomplishments we can make.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well said. I wanna thank each of you again for being a part of this conversation. Again, Isaac
you.
Contreras, NAHREP,
Yeah, NAREB President 2021.
and Trent Bowman,
NAREB.
Narab, and Nalee.
Yep, Arya,
Arya.
Twin Cities.
Thank you so much. We're excited. There's a lot of opportunity, and I want to thank each and every one of you for joining us today in this conversation and for being here at this table with ABC Realty, where we are closing the gap. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Cool.
NBC. No relation to NBC.